Hello everyone, and welcome to the summer presentation of the Introduction to Social Welfare. This is a cross-listed course with the Social Work and Human Services Department at UAA, and so there are a variety of individuals registered for this course from, I would venture to guess, many walks of life. My history with this class goes back many years. In fact, it was, I believe, the first course that I taught, or the second course that I taught at the Kenai Peninsula College for the University of Alaska Anchorage down here where I live in Kenai in the late 1980s or early 1990s. And I have presented this course in the classroom and more recently online, I'm sure over 24 times by now. And so the material is pretty familiar to me. And what's been very interesting about this course over the years is watching social welfare and social work and the attitudes regarding our clients develop in the course of the last 20 years or so. I believe when I started teaching this course, George Bush Sr., Poppy, the older guy, 41, was president in the late 80s, and I remember very clearly the election with when Bill Clinton was elected, and the hope that engendered in many of us at the time. Little did we realize that he was going to be so much more of a centrist president, centrist politician, making a lot of concessions to the right side of the political spectrum in order to maintain his control and his the power of his office during those years. Clinton came into office first wanting to implement a national health care insurance program, and those of you of a certain age will recall that he appointed Hillary Clinton, his wife, as the leader of that project, and this created all sorts of disgruntlement and unhappiness among the population of the United States. It may come as no surprise to most of you that powerful women aren't very popular with a large segment of our American population, and so it was a bad move on his part early in his administration, although it was a bold move and it was the right move to make. But long and short of that is that effort failed after a year or two. They believe they came on too aggressively. The recent implementation of the Affordable Health Care Act, more affectionately known as Obamacare, is really a poor shadow of the kind of health care we could have had 20 some years ago under the Clinton administration had that initial effort been successful. And you will learn during this semester that this was certainly not even an initial effort at establishing a national health insurance program. This is something that our leaders have been trying to do virtually since the beginning of our government, but more importantly over the last 100 years or so. Clinton also, by the time his administration was well underway, had begun to promise to reform welfare and to change welfare as we knew it, and that indeed happened also during the course of his administration. And so all of this emerged in the first, let's say, 5 or 10 years of my teaching this course, and since that time we've seen the political ball go back and forth between Republicans and Democrats, and one thing that has been pretty consistent throughout all of this time is a general national distaste for dependency and for people who are dependent upon the government for social welfare programs. Now, much of what we're going to be looking at this semester involves those very programs, and so I think this class promises to be interesting, not only in terms of the course material itself, which if you are coming into this thinking it's going to be a dry course, I think by the end of the semester you will feel differently about it. I think I can safely predict that for most of you. So it will certainly have a lot of interesting material for you to think about, and our discussion boards, I think, from week to week are going to also give you cause to think about your belief system and your thoughts as you and your classmates discuss and debate in the discussion boards, as well as in your group project, which we'll talk about later, some of these major topics. So anyway, I'd like to welcome you to the course. My name is Bill Galic. The LCSW after my name stands for Licensed Clinical Social Worker. I've been licensed by Alaska to provide clinical social work again since the early 1990s, late 1980s. I'm not sure when I passed my test anymore. But my focus has not been in private practice, and with the exception of an 8-year period of time, well, maybe more like 10 or 12 years in my career have I really focused upon clinical social work, that is providing therapy services and more other kinds of services in my career, which we'll talk about as time goes on. You see my email addresses here below. The university prefers that you use the university address to communicate with me. However, my home email address is there, and you should feel free to use that. No one else accesses that account, and so your communications with me will be private there as well. Also, you see my cell number and my home phone number. If you need to reach me, my recommendation would be to call my home number and to leave a message if I don't respond. I just pick up on that a lot more quickly usually than I do with my cell phones. But if there's an urgent matter, please feel free to call me on my cell. There are actually 3 books that you're going to be working out of during this semester, 2 textbooks and a short reader. The first text, and this is, I would say, probably the book that we organize the course around, is a text that I have been using, I think, since the first or second edition in this class by Phyllis Day. Recently, in this most recent edition, Jerome Scheel has joined her as an author in this book. I think Professor Day is aging, and so a new author has come in to kind of help her with some of this, I'm suspecting. However, I will tell you that the stamp of Phyllis Day is real clear throughout this book. Phyllis Day is going to stir you up when you read this book. The first few times that I went through this material, I found myself very stirred up and really kind of upset with some of the things that she was saying. And it took me a few go-overs with this course, and a few times going through this textbook before what she was saying really began to sink in with me. And I have 10 weeks to try to help this material sink in for you, and so I'm hoping that I can give you a little bit speedier process in kind of understanding some of her concepts that I had initially. But I think you will be it would be safe to say that she's a feminist author. She sees poverty as a women's issue, and indeed poverty is primarily a women's issue, although there are poor males, no doubt, in a society. Most of the persons that live below the poverty line are children, first of all, and most of those children live in female-headed households, single female-headed households. Now, that's not to say it's the woman's fault, but that's the fact. And so poverty, in many respects, is a woman's issue. And so you will see her talking a lot about women throughout the textbook, and there's a good reason for that. Additionally, she spends quite a bit of time talking about minority populations and discrimination, and very early in the textbook you're going to start learning the difference between individual discrimination and institutional discrimination. We want to tell ourselves as a society and as individuals that we've moved beyond discriminating against others because of religion or because of gender or because of race or because of sexual orientation or age. And perhaps on an individual level we know well enough not to discriminate against another person of a different group, a minority group, on an individual basis. But there are many things that happen in our society on what we call an institutional basis that continues the process of discrimination against those minority populations, and will continue in our society if things continue as they are presently. Many of you already may be beginning to have a reaction and a response to that, and I just encourage you to read along and think along with us throughout the semester, and you'll be able to understand what I'm talking about. So this book really takes us on a tour of history through social welfare, and it kind of gives me a good opportunity also, because really when I started out in college many years ago, I started out as a history education major and switched into social work, kind of led there by a friend actually in my freshman year in college. But this kind of blends a couple of things that I really like about reading and education, that is history and social work and social welfare. And so this historical perspective is something that I think actually my armchair historian knowledge will also be able to add some things to what she has to say as we work through first ancient history really, and then American history, and you see how social welfare gets implemented and gets developed over the course of the time in our nation. So that's what this textbook's about. The next textbook, So You Think I Drive a Cadillac, is one that I've added on to this course maybe 3 or 4 or 5 years ago at the most. And this book will have you learning about the lives of present-day public assistance recipients, women on welfare mostly. And will, on the one hand, probably affirm some of your beliefs about people on welfare, and on the other hand, will challenge your beliefs and help you to understand things a lot better. Like everything, I think, when there's a certain perception about groups of individuals, and this perception being that, the welfare is made up of a bunch of people who really have for generations been dependent upon the government, and they have no motivation, and really they don't want to change, and all they want to do is pop out more babies so that they get more money from the government, and why should they ever go to work? It's their own fault they're there. If they just go, get some education or get a job training program or stop smoking pot or drinking alcohol or having sex all the time, they could take care of themselves and they wouldn't need Uncle Sam to give them a welfare check. That's sort of the perception of things. And there are these outliers. Ronald Reagan in particular, I think, used to talk about the welfare queens, the women who you'll and I know I'm going to get this in some of your journal entries about these stories about somebody frauding the government in Michigan and earning $2 million a year and still drawing food stamps and those kinds of things. Yes, there are people out there who cheat the system. That's the kernel of truth. And those stories get published in the paper, and the public then begins to develop this perspective, this idea that this is everybody on welfare, and it isn't. It isn't even close to everybody. This book talks about the people on welfare, and she does interview some people who are cheaters, and you learn about why they cheat. But most of the people that she's talking about, she's interviewing here, aren't cheaters and want to work, but are really stuck in a system that is not a good system. So we're not going to be arguing that the public assistance programs and system as it currently exists is a good system necessarily, but it is what we have, and until we find something better, anyway, that's a whole semester's worth of discussion. We're not going to start reading the Second book for a few weeks because I want you to kind of get the basis of some of the historical perspectives on social welfare before we begin to take a look at the lives of current welfare recipients. And by the end of this book, she begins to take a broader view, by the way, and compares our society and our handling of individuals who are in need to those of other developed countries in the West, and ask the question about why it is that they can do this and we can't. So again, another book that I think will stir you up some, maybe challenge your perspectives, maybe help you even change your mind in some areas. Finally, this book, this is not the cover I have, and the publisher and the date that is in the syllabus, that's just the book I have. I really probably need to change the syllabus and just say this. Whatever version of this book you get is fine. Now, The Jungle, as long as it's an unabridged version, I know that, for instance, on Amazon you can download a version of The Jungle for free, both abridged and unabridged. And so get the unabridged one. Don't get the shortcut. You want to read the whole book. And some of you have probably read this book in high school, maybe in your English classes, or even maybe a history class, because Upton Sinclair was one of those writers in the early 1900s that were known as the muckrakers. You might remember that from your history lessons, where they really were writing about the conditions, the conditions of the common man. And in Sinclair's case, in this book, he's writing about immigrants and their experience coming to America 100 years ago. At the turn of the last century, there was a huge influx of immigrants from all parts of Europe. And that's another piece of this that we'll be looking at during the semester, immigrants and how that's affected our lives and how coming to America was experienced for them. My own father, in fact, came over to America through Ellis Island as an infant. He was born in Hungary and came with my grandmother across the ocean 100 years ago. I still, to this day, it still boggles my mind that my grandmother, who was an old post-stroke woman, when I first met her as a little boy, in her 70s and kind of disabled, it just boggles my mind that seemingly invalid woman was strong enough to bring her baby across the ocean by herself because her husband had come ahead of him in 100 years ago. It's just amazing. But anyway, he writes about the experiences of the immigrants. And the book, early on in the book, is kind of dense. The main protagonist, Jurgis, gets married early in the book, and there's a lot of description of the Lithuanian, or I think they're Lithuanians, their traditions in the marriage and those kinds of things. But in any event, trust me when I say that what can go wrong does go wrong for Jurgis until very late in the book, when he discovers socialism. And this is another piece. Now, Sinclair was a socialist, and I think that what he really wanted was to convert his readers to socialism in those days. In history, if you think back to when the Bolshevik Revolution was in Russia in 1917, this maybe kind of gives you a clue to the fact that there were a lot of it was a very dynamic time in terms of political and economic systems. And in America, there were the fabulously wealthy and the extremely poor, and this huge gap between them, not much in the way of the middle class in between. And socialism was sweeping across Europe in those days. And so this book, in many respects, was considered to be kind of, undermining the stability of the nation and those kinds of things. It's really got a piece in our history, and it works in very well when we talk about the progressive era around the early 1900s. It works in very well to our study, and so you will be reading this book. It's really a small paperback, a couple hundred pages long perhaps, and you're going to write a paper on this book, a short paper, and submit it through Blackboard, and then you'll be done with that. And this will be done in week 4, but more upon that later. One thing I want to mention to you really before, let me go backwards here, before we get started looking at the syllabus. This says 10 weeks. This is the 10-week version. Really, the course is stretching out over 11 weeks because I have a week's break built in. And so if you look at the calendar for the summer, it's an 11-week semester, and I understand from the university, from the director of the school, that typically instructors do give students a week off during the course of the summer, and so we have that structured in. Actually, it's the week before the 4th of July, or the week of 4th of July is when we're going to take a break. So although this says 10 weeks, that really is 10 weeks of study plus 1 week on break. So just so we're clear on that. Now, moving on, about the syllabus, I want to be sure that you read through your course syllabus from front to back if you haven't done this. They're really everything you need to know about the course and how it's run and how your grades are earned and what the elements of the grading is. All of that is in there. For those of you who, and you'll notice in Blackboard that the learning units open week by week by week by week. They're not all up there when you look in there. And so some of you want to work ahead for whatever reason. You're going away for a couple of weeks and you want to read early, read ahead or something. The syllabus gives you the entire course assignments throughout the semester, so you know what's assigned when. You can always refer back to that if you want to without going into Blackboard. So my advice to you is there is an element on the course menu called Syllabus and Calendar. The first thing you see there is the attachment of the course syllabus in Word format. Please print that out and keep a copy of it with you. It's a good thing to do, and read through it. Now, briefly, just kind of running through the syllabus with you. Here's how you earn points. Participation in attendance. I mean, you're obviously you don't have a classroom to go to, and we don't have any Collaborate or eLive sessions where we meet during the week. This is entirely asynchronous. So this means that unless you need to talk with me about something, or we need to have a meeting of some sort that you arrange, with a phone call or email to me, we won't be interacting directly. We do interact in Blackboard. Your communications in your journals will be with me privately. So you have an opportunity to more or less talk with me individually in your journals if you wish to do that. But also, of course, I'm reading through everything you're doing during the course of the semester, so I'm not ignoring you. But in any event, what about attendance? Well, attendance really to me is seeing that you're in there week after week, participating in the discussion boards fully, and I'll tell you what that means in a few slides. Making your journal entries every week and doing these things on time, being present, meeting with, not necessarily physically meeting with, but engaging with the fellow group members, because you're going to be assigned to a group for a project together. And you do this through a site you have in Blackboard, and some evidence that you're participating there regularly and routinely throughout the semester. These are all things that will earn you participation and attendance points. If you do all that stuff, you can pretty much figure, and you're weighing in on all the assignments, you're going to get your full 50 points there. There are 10 discussion boards during the course of the semester, each worth 10 points, and we'll be telling you how to get those 10 points in a moment. You have a journal entry called an E-Scrapbook, which is really a current event project. When I do this course on a face-to-face basis, although maybe now this will change because of Blackboard, but in the past I actually had students clipping articles out of newspapers and magazines about social welfare and civil rights and human rights and discrimination and all those kinds of things, and submitting a scrapbook by the end of the semester to me. And some of those students, in fact, kept their scrapbooks, put it on their shelves, and they're really some really dynamic kinds of pieces there. But what you do here is you're going to be going out and drawing articles off the web or out of newspapers or whatever, and summarizing them and reacting to them each week. And that's going to be a private post between you and me. You'll be writing the paper on the jungle. That's worth 50 points. By the way, the journal entries, one a week, times 10 points each, 100 points. So your group research and written project, that's the big thing for the semester, is 150 points when that's done. Your group submits one paper. So you'll probably have 4 or 5 people in your group, and you divide up, and some of that I assign to certain positions to research, but you'll divide up this your activities in this as you decide to see fit. And so the paper, well, more about that later. Group check-ins, and this is I'll explain this in a little bit, but essentially, I'm going to need to see evidence that you're working with your group regularly. The complaint I get about this, people at first are confused as to how to do groups in Blackboard, and those of you that have had my one of my classes in the past have already done this, but it's confusing to some people, and it's very doable. But what makes this project difficult is that some people are procrastinators, and I will also say, on the other hand, some people are sort of OCD about getting started right away and getting things done constantly, and somewhere there's a middle ground there that really makes it much more pleasant to work in a group. And I encourage you all to find that. And that means don't wait until the last minute. And if you're that kind of person, please have the courtesy not to be that kind of person for your group. Work with your group throughout the semester. And if you're one of these really OCD kind of compulsive people that just has got to get everything done right away, relax a little bit and let other people catch up with you. And you're going to have a good group experience. Semester after semester, I have students writing to me, wringing their hands because they're not hearing from somebody, or something like that, and invariably I get a wonderful finished project when it's all done, and everybody's happy with it. So it can be done. It will be done. The check-ins really is a kind of a way to reward you for checking in and to remind you that you need to be doing that. Discussion board posts on classmates group projects. After everybody has submitted their paper, I will post them in each of them in discussion board forums, and everybody else in the class will read your group's paper, and you'll read everybody else's group's paper and participate in discussion group, or rather, I should say discussion board discussions on those papers. That's for a maximum of 50 points. And there are two tests, one for 40 points at mid-semester and another one at the end, which is a cumulative test for the whole semester, 60 points. More on that in a minute. You will also have an opportunity. I will put in 3 extra discussion boards during the semester. Some weeks there will be 2 discussion boards, and so you get an opportunity there to earn 30 bonus points during the semester. And I would encourage you to take advantage of that fully, because there's a number of different reasons why you may want those 30 points later, and it will be too late if you don't do it when they're up there. So when the discussion boards present themselves, and there's 2 in a week, do both of them and just get those points ahead of time, even if you don't think you're going to need them. And one more thing I'll tell you, if you follow Blackboard and you let Blackboard tell you what your percentage is, either I don't know how to work with Blackboard's grade center well, or the grade center doesn't understand me, but the extra credit points, for one thing, sometimes confuse Blackboard, and they'll make you think if you decide not to do an extra discussion board, you're going to get a 0 on the project, and you're going to think, well, it was supposed to be extra credit, why do I have a 0? You don't have a 0, it just means you didn't get points for it because you didn't do anything, that's all. So don't worry too much about what Blackboard says. I'll show you the grading scale, and just follow how you're doing in terms of what you could be doing. And this is the grading scale. And this made a mistake here. It says it's based on 550 points. It's really based on 640 points, as you can see. And so by the end of the semester, with all those other things, this is how you're going to get your grade. It's not a percentage, it's how many points you have out of all these projects you've got going. This is all in the syllabus. Participation and attendance, talked about that already. Now for your discussion boards, each Sunday a new learning unit will open up for the week. So Sunday, pretty much 12:05 a.m., a new learning unit opens up. And I know, because I've written to a few of you students who are up emailing me at 3:30 in the morning, and you know who you are. I know that students are up, and I bet you some students are waiting at 12:05 for the new learning unit to open up, and so it will be there for you on Sunday morning, 12:05 a.m., the new learning unit for the week. And in that learning unit, there'll be the week's lectures. There will also be your reading assignments. So tell you which chapters to read during the week. And I will say to you, do this during the week. Don't think you can wait and catch up 3 weeks later, because you will have missed discussion boards and journal entries, and you're going to be way far behind. So it is asynchronous, this course, so that you can pretty much decide when you do the work, but you have to think in terms of doing the work within the week, Sunday to Sunday, not within the month or before the semester's over. This isn't a correspondence course where you just submit everything at the end and I grade it and send it back to you. You have to submit things every week, week by week by week by week. Okay, so you really want to pay attention to the new learning units when they open up on Sundays. And so the learning unit opens up on Sunday morning. It tells you what to read, and there's also going to be a discussion board question or two, if it's one of those extra credit weeks, that will open up. And so you go to that discussion board after you've done the readings, after you've listened to the lectures, and you respond to the question with a post of a minimum of 150 words. And there are more specific instructions about this in the course itself. There's a menu item called Board and Journal Grading Guidelines, I believe, and this spells all the stuff out very thoroughly for you. So you make your post by the following Sunday night. So if it opens up on June 1st, then you post your original. This says 2 original responses. Yeah, well, okay, so there might be 2 questions, if it's an extra credit week, but usually there's only 1 question. And so you post your original responses. Let's say it's an extra credit week and you have 2 discussion boards. You post your 2 original responses by Sunday, June 8th. That's a week after the learning unit opens. And then by the following Thursday, you have gone back in and read your classmates' original posts, and you respond to them. Those responses don't have to be 150 words, but they have to be meaningful. They're not going to be like, yeah, I agree, or no, I don't agree, and just that's all it says, or haha, funny, or something like that. I mean, where you actually have a meaningful kind of input, a response to what the student says. And you will notice, because you're creating a thread when you begin to respond, that you can subscribe to your own thread. And what that does, you push a button that says subscribe, and what that does is Blackboard will send you an email whenever somebody posts a response to what you wrote. So you can go back in and read what they wrote and respond to them again if you want. And if that person's also subscribed to the post, to your post, since he wrote in there, maybe he or she will, then more discussion can entail. So that's the idea of the discussion board. You know, the original response plus 2 responses to your classmates' post is sort of that is your full credit, 10 points, but it's really the minimum of what is supposed to happen in a discussion board. And I really hope that in some of these topics, you'll go forward with discussing it in the discussion board and not just do the minimum original response plus two responses to classmates' posts. Okay, so original response to the question by the following Sunday night, responses to 2 of your classmates' original responses, original posts by the following Thursday, that would be June 12th in this example, and then the following weekend I'm pretty much in there grading everything, because by then everybody's got all the responses in. And so if a discussion board opens on June the 1st, the grading is probably going to be in there about 2 weeks later, and that's pretty much what you can expect from me. So your original post plus 2 responses in each discussion board. Now again, this is assuming that the posts meet the minimum requirements that are spelled out in the guidelines in the course. Then you'll get 10 points for that each week. Now you're going to be, this is actually about your journal. I didn't put the title up at the E-Scrapbook journal. And there's an example later on in this particular learning unit, and will also be posted in the board and blog guideline, or the board and journal guidelines. A very wonderful example of how you should do your journal entries. And if you do it and conform to it this way, you're certainly going to get 10 points for your journal entries each week. People who stray from this guideline that's suggested to you are probably going to not get 10 points. But basically, a brief summary of the current event related to the social welfare, civil rights, or whatever it is that you're writing about. Again, it should be related to this course topic, social welfare, civil rights, or something like that. And then you write a paragraph, a separate paragraph that spells out your response to the item, you know, what it is that ever happened in the news or whatever like this. And again, there's the menu item you can refer to for a good prototype, and you'll see it later in this learning unit as well. And so the summary of the course, and please also give me a reference to what the article is, like where you found the article, you know. So identify the article, brief summary of what the article says, 150 words or more reaction. Now your reaction is the 150 word thing, not the whole thing, but your reaction. Okay, this is a private post between you and me. Occasionally students do bring up other things in these posts, and that's perfectly okay too, but I really do want you also doing your journals, doing your current events thing. And the whole idea here is to show you how alive this topic is around you, and it is. You'll find all sorts of materials for this stuff if you just pay attention. So, and this is a current post, and so it has to be done in a timely manner. And if you're posting, if you skip this for 4 or 5 weeks and then write to me and say, you know, I want to go in and make these posts now, I'm going to tell you you can do it, but you're probably not going to get very many points for it because it's supposed to be current event. Okay? All right, so 200 points, or rather 10 points a week for that. And so for discussion boards and journals, that's 20 points a week total, 200 points total during the semester. Told you this a couple times already. The book Jungle. You will read this book by week 4. You'll write a paper, 3 to 6 pages, summarizing the book, your reaction, and tying in course concepts. So a good paper on the jungle isn't going to be just like a book report. It's, you know, you might summarize. I really don't need you to run through everything that happened in the book. I know what happens in the book, but I also want to know that you've read it, and so some sort of a summary of the book is a good thing. what your reaction is to what you were reading, and connect it to some of the stuff that we're reading about already. Tie it into course concepts. That's a full credit paper there. You should submit this paper as a Word attachment, and you don't see assignments in the course menu yet, but you will by week 4, and you'll submit it there. So you type it up in Word, attach it in the assignments link, and I'll read it and send it back to you there as well. That's 50 points. The big project here. You and 1 or 2 classmates will be assigned to a position, sort of a yes-no position or a pro or con position on a controversial topic related to social welfare, human rights, civil rights, those kinds of things. Those of you that have had most of my courses kind of do this yes-no kind of project. I've had a couple other courses where we don't do yes-no, but that's what we do here. So you'll be assigned to a yes or no. Let's say the topic is, this might very well be one of the topics, should a pregnant woman be allowed to choose to have an abortion? Okay, this is a question that runs across several different classes sometimes. And I may assign you to a yes, and you might be an avid pro-lifer. So you feel no. Your reaction to that is no. But this is not intended to be a persuasive project. So while you're writing the yes or no side of a paper as I assign to you, whichever, and it's going to be random assignments, as I assign these things to you, it's not going to matter what you feel or what you think, because this isn't about what you believe. This is about the research for the yes or the no. And so you are to go into the web, basically, or into the library or wherever it is you go, interview people. If you want to interview people, that's a great source for a project like this. People that have something to do with the topic, and report what the research says, what the experts say about this, and why people who believe yes or no on this topic believe it's justified. So it doesn't matter what you feel or what you believe about the topic. It's a research topic, not a persuasive topic. And so let's say you're assigned to the yes side with another person, and the two of you decide how you're going to divide up researching yes, and you put together your idea. Meanwhile, I have a couple other people assigned to no in your group. It's the same group, and both yes and no share one group site. So you have a private group site in Blackboard to work. You'll have tools there that include a place where you can exchange files. You'll have a discussion board where you can discuss, just kind of like any other discussion board. Here's what I'm doing. What do you think of this? Can we get together? Or can we have a phone call or whatever? This is what I found. What do you think of this? And there'll be a couple other tools there. You have a thing where you have each other's email addresses. One thing, unfortunately, you don't have is phone numbers, and I encourage you to get each other's phone numbers right away. But you'll see when it's assigned. Again, you won't find your group project on the course menu yet, but it will be there in a few weeks. Probably around week 3 or 4, I will give you this assignment. And so your yes side and the no side will come together in your group site, and we'll put together one paper, just one paper, and it should be a well-blended paper. And again, there are guidelines that are going to be on the course menu for you to follow. And then you present that paper by the due date, and I'll grade it and mark it up and return it to you in your group site, so that you have a paper there. You can print it off if you want. You don't have to if you don't want to. But then also take the unmarked copy. Well, let me save that. Okay, let me just save that. So, again, I will tell you, don't procrastinate here. And you can see when I put things in red, I really mean pay attention to this. Respond to emails from your group mates and post in your group site. Now, this implies one thing: you're checking your group site regularly. It also implies that you're checking your university email regularly. And if you don't do that, get that habit going now, because there's a lot of very important communication that's going on through your university email accounts about this class and probably other classes as well. Fancy, isn't that? Look at that. So the group check-ins now at 2 points that I will designate when I open up, when I make the group assignments, your presence should be found in your group website. So let's say I open, I don't know, let's just say, and it's probably not going to be this quick, but let's say on June the 1st I have the groups assigned, and I say your check-in dates, because it's due on, July 10 or 12, whatever, your check-in dates are June 15 and July 5. So that I will go in on those dates, and I'm going to look in your group site to see whether or not you have actually connected with your fellow group members in a group site. Don't write to me and say, well, I've been texting her all semester. I need to see evidence in the group site for these points. And so, because what this does is it demonstrates to me that you're actively working on this, and this is sort of a procrastinator prevention project. That's very alliterative. Procrastinator preventive project. This makes sure that everybody's working. And again, you'll get rewards for up to 20 points. I might not give you 20 points if you just go in and say, hey, and that's all. Give you a couple points for that. At least you're letting your group members know you're alive. But I want to see something useful, something significant, where you're exchanging your phone numbers, you're beginning to make plans with your coworkers, and then at the second group the group check-in rather, that you're really kind of sharing what you've done at a minimum, if not sooner. Okay, so that's 40 points there. Group discussion boards. So after the papers have been done, turned in, I will take the unmarked copies, not my graded copies, but the unmarked copies, and post them in discussion board forums, and then everybody in the class will have an opportunity to read your paper. Like other discussion boards, 10 points for original, plus 2 responses to classmates' posts, for up to 50 points. One test for 40 points, the other test for 60 points. The questions are pretty much multiple choice, maybe some true or false in there. Oh, about testing. And I don't really say this. They are open book. You don't have to go to a testing center anywhere. You don't have to go to the campus, anything like this. You're going to do them right in Blackboard. If you have the book open and you're going through the index, fine. The tests will be timed, so you only have a certain amount of time to get them done, and you'll have enough time if you have read the material. If you think you don't have to read it and then you can just kind of like flip through the pages, you won't have enough time because there's going to be too many questions for you to answer it that way. So read your material, listen to your lectures, and you'll do fine in the tests, and you'll have plenty of time. But let's say you go through this test and you are unhappy with it. I think the first test, I think you get an hour to respond to 40 multiple choice questions or something, and you don't like the score you got. You can go back in and take the test a second time, and the higher of your 2 scores will be the one that's recorded. Now, you may not get the same questions the second time because the questions are being pulled from a pool, and you will have a different test than your classmates will, because they're randomly assigned questions and randomly arranged and all this kind of stuff. So nobody's like texting, 1 is A and 3 is D and 4, because if you do that, you're going to get a really low score because the questions are mixed up for everybody, and not anybody probably has the same test. And so the second time you take the test is going to be different too. All right, so the test will open. Let's say it's the week of June the 15th. I don't know when the first test is. I think it is actually the week of 15th of June. The test opens on a Thursday, and so 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th. So Thursday, June 19th, test 1 maybe opens, okay? It is open for the rest of that week plus the following week. It will be in you'll have to go to the course content for the week of June 15th to find the test, to enter the test, but it will be open for 11 days, and so you can go in and take the test and then go back in 6 days later and take the second time, or you can take the second one, both of them right at the end, or however you want to do it, but for 11 days. And so they close automatically on Sunday night. If this test opened on June 19th, it would close on June 29th, Sunday night, June 29th, 11 days after it opened. More instructions on that as the time comes for that. These are pretty user-friendly tests. There's probably a lot more detail in it than if I didn't have a lot of other scoring opportunities for you. Well, you get two attempts, and so the detailed questions. I have students who get 100% on these tests, and so they're not too detailed that you can't get them. If you're reading and keeping up with your lectures, you'll do fine. Don't miss the test closing date, because once the test is closed, it will not be available again. And I will tell you, the tests close on Sunday nights, and I mean, when they close, they close. You can't find them in the course material anymore. They're gone. Okay. And if you wait until the last minute, or you wait until Sunday night, the second Sunday night in this 11-day period, at 7:30, and sit down and try to take this test and figure you don't need to have time to take it a second time, you have to, and then you come and find out that Blackboard's doing some maintenance, because IT seems to like Sunday nights. I don't know why, but and so all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, Blackboard wouldn't let me in. Well, Blackboard is Blackboard, and I have a disclaimer in the syllabus, and I'll tell you here, I'm not responsible for what Blackboard does to you. I mean, I try to be fair and everything like this, but when the test is going to close. Let me just say, don't wait until the last minute, and this is true for everything. Don't wait until the last minute, and you won't have any problems. 3 additional discussion boards during the semester, as I said, can give you up to 30 points. This is over and above the 640 points total. And also, if there are 2 discussion boards in a week, one isn't the one you're required to do and the second one is optional, you can do either one. You can do both. It doesn't matter. You can do neither of them if you want to, but you're not going to get any points. So it doesn't matter which one you do, and I encourage you to do both, as I said, because that's how you get your extra points. When you open the course, it's going to open to announcements, and you should always check and see if there's something new in the announcements list. New announcements are always on top. And when I put an announcement in, I also have Blackboard send you an email which goes to your university email account. So again, I will say, be sure to check your university email account regularly and frequently. That's your responsibility. Okay. Oh, if I sound frustrated, it's because there's always a couple of people that's like, oh, I didn't know this, and I told you. So the most important link on your course menu is the weekly course content. And so when you go into the course, look and see if there's announcements there. Click on weekly course content. You'll find which week it is you're in, click on that week, and then go through those slides. Every last slide, there isn't just one slide. I had one student actually tell me, like 6 weeks into the semester, he suddenly discovered there was more than one slide in the weekly course content. So he just read the couple paragraphs that I wrote, and he wasn't doing very well in the class, and it's not much of a surprise. I don't think he was really trying very hard, though, either. You really have to try hard to miss the fact that there's other slides. There are other slides. Generally speaking, the first week, this kind of layout's different because there's a lot of things to cover. But after this, you're going to see that what happens is I write an opening few paragraphs that kind of get you thinking about what the material is. I tell you what the learning objectives are for the week. I will tell you what your reading assignments and other assignments are for the week. Then you will find 1, 2, or 3 windows with course lectures in them. I try to keep them short. Okay, so I can give you one long one for 2.5 hours, or I can give you 3 shorter ones for 40 minutes each, that kind of thing. Then you will see your discussion board link next. Then you will see your journal link next. Then you're going to find a page that has a copy of the lecture slides there for you to print out if you want, and then you're going to find a closing few paragraphs from that where I try to get you thinking about things again before you leave the material. In addition, sometimes like you're going to find the tests when they're in there, they'll be kind of late in that sequence, probably somewhere after the journal entries you'll find the tests, and usually a week ahead of time, or when the test is coming, there'll be a little warning that there's going to be a test here and things like that. But pretty much the same outline every week. So and you have to go through each link. Some students want me to give them a link to go right to the discussion board and journals, and I don't do that because what students do is they go and they do the discussion board and journals sometimes, and they skip all the other stuff, and again, you're missing a lot of stuff. So if you're not going to read it, I at least want you to make sure that you know it's there as you skip past it. So please always look at the weekly course content, and if you have any questions about that, let me know. Be sure to read every slide every week. Net etiquette. Set of rules for behaving properly online. You read a list of several of them, and the start here, I hope. And there's probably 3-4 times as many of those kinds of rules if you really wanted to sit down and do it. But the point is here, when you're interacting with people online, sometimes we forget that there's real people on the other side of things, and people will say things in online discussions, and it's one of the reasons I like online teaching, is I find that the students who sit in a class very quietly in a classroom speak up in discussion board forums. They say things, and so more people are participating. Sometimes people speak up in kind of a rude way, and sometimes they're kind of arrogant, or sometimes they say something and they're not really thinking that, this might offend somebody who, believes in this or something like that. And so sometimes people say things that they really wouldn't say if they really knew who was at the other end of the computer, the other end of the line, so to speak. And so remember that. Remember, there's real people there, people from all walks of life, people belonging to every group, statistically speaking. In a group this size, we have about 24 students in this class starting out. Pretty much every minority group, every possible kind of persuasion of individuals in your class. And so keep this in mind and be respectful of everybody. There is a way to disagree with people and not be offensive. There's a way to speak your mind and to say things in a way that doesn't put people down, all those kinds of things. So that's the etiquette part of this. We don't, as you know, we learned in email that the words come across, but the body language and the tone of voice and all those kinds of things that we have when we say things isn't there in an email, isn't there in text, isn't there when we write in discussion boards. And so keep that in mind and word your things carefully, so that that it reduces the likelihood that people are going to interpret things into what you say that you didn't intend to. Don't threaten at any time. Don't post comments that derogate, put down other people. If you do make comments that are abusive or offensive, students have come to me and complained, and the university is certainly concerned about that, and we'll look into that. So keep it in mind, okay? And remember, also try to be forgiving of other people when they do make mistakes, because sometimes this is new for us. Okay, I'm almost done. Just working on a little longer. So this week's discussion board is going to be kind of an easy one. It's not going to really, you're not reading anything this week, so I guess I shouldn't apologize to you. You don't have that much work really, but you're to write a post of about 150 words or more, and more really. I encourage you to do that. To tell us about who you are, and here's some ideas of some of the things that you might write about. You are not required to write about things that you don't want to share. You are not required to write about extremely personal things. You can if you want to. Might not be the right moment for that, but you can. Some people have done that. I will tell you, these posts originally, if you put in pictures, sometimes it now and at any time, it really kind of adds to your post, and I'd encourage you to do that. And photographs of yourself, it's nice to kind of see who's at the, who this name is associated with. We had a face with a name, and that's kind of cool. But if you don't want to do that, that's fine. Do you have, a picture of, your favorite vacation spot, or do you have photographs of your family or of your home, or, something you really think is funny or something like that? Any kind of pictures like that, feel free to add to the post, particularly if they actually add to the post. So I'd encourage you to think about that. Okay, but a minimum of 150 words. Pictures totally optional. I'm just suggesting that. That's all. And by the way, 150 words is like maybe 7 or 8 sentences, a couple paragraphs. That's really not a lot of writing. And so when I say 150 words or more, really, I'm hoping you'll do more. in these posts and in discussion boards and journals, and not just stick to 150. But I'm looking for at least that. If you don't post 150, you're probably going to lose some points because of that. So your first E-Scrapbook entry, also, that's your journal. You look for a current event related to social welfare or civil rights. Things like, and just some examples of things like, the legislature, well, they're not in session now, but Washington, they're talking about the budget, and the legislature did do the budget, and how are representatives, how are Congress dealing with social issues? There's a big debate between the right and the left about what they call entitlement programs, Social Security and welfare and those kinds of things. Funding for education, civil rights issues, discrimination issues, racism, sexism, ageism, healthcare reform, gay rights, same-sex marriage, equal pay for women. I mean, it's a wide field, and so please just feel free to select an article from that, summarize it, and give me a reaction of 150 words or more. And again, I refer you to the board and journal grading guidelines section, and also the pay later in this week's learning unit as for a format about how to do your journal entries. This is the last slide. That's what those little stars at the bottom mean. It tells me to wrap it up. I actually added this slide because at one point I had decided I was going to have you read the first chapter of the day text this week, and I have since changed my mind and I put it back into the second week. But when you begin to read the day text, pay particular attention to the 9 American values that she writes about in the first chapter, because these are core concepts, sort of foundation concepts that we're going to keep referring back to. They're really important to understand, to get the content of this course. So pay attention to that. And although there are no readings, if you want to get a start on this, I'd encourage you to get started on reading the day text and maybe read at least the first chapter. So the lecture on that won't be till next week, but it'll give you a good idea what you're getting into. Okay. All right. That's it. Hope I didn't scare anybody away, and even if you got a few friends that are still looking for a class or something like that, and have them write to me. I can probably squeeze them in, and I'm really happy to be doing this over the summer. I'm going to tell you, this is typically material that I present over 15 weeks, and so we have 10 learning unit weeks to study. Remember, there's a 1 week break that actually makes it 11-week semester, but you're going to be really working at a fast pace, and trust me, I'm working at a fast pace to keep up with you too. I mean, I'm working harder too, but you'll get the same material you're going to get in a 15-week course, but just crammed into 10 weeks, and so I don't know, there's some satisfaction in that. By the time you're done, you're going to feel like you ran a sprint, but you'll be happy when you feel that tape across your chest and you're done finally. So welcome to the class, and I hope you find the semester to be something that is very useful and eye-opening for you as well. Okay, talk to you next week. Bye.